At 53 years old, I can safely say that my career has gone absolutely nothing like I thought it would. And I think that's probably one of the most important career lessons I've learned. At 5 years old, I started learning the piano. Music became an enormous part of my life. I continued studying it throughout my childhood, through my teenage years, and into my 20s. And at one point, I genuinely thought I was going to become a concert pianist. I went to university to study music with that goal in mind. And then, about a year into my degree, I changed my mind completely. I switched direction and decided to study marketing and PR instead. Then came my glamorous introduction to the corporate world, working as a waiter at Denny's in New Zealand. Not exactly Saatchi and Saatchi. Although, strangely enough, Saatchi and Saatchi eventually did come along. Well, my second role was as the personal assistant to the head of media. 2 years before that, I'd worked in a secretarial services place where I honed all my skills. Ironically, I lied on my CV to get the job. I mean, who's going to want to hire a male administrator in the 1990s, at a time when the role itself was fully dominated by women? This role eventually led me into the corporate world, where I've had the pleasure of working for so many huge companies, including working at Saatchi Saatchi, Young and Rubicam, Clemenges, Goldman Sachs, Macquarie Group, Ernst & Young, and Barrenjoey, to name a few. But all that's for another video perhaps. And from there, my career continued to twist and turn until eventually I found myself working as a male executive assistant. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working alongside and supporting managing directors, partners, founders, heads of businesses, and some incredibly successful people. I've spent a large part of my career working in investment banking, where you get a fascinating view of how very successful people make decisions, handle pressure, manage relationships, and sometimes completely stuff things up. And I've learned something from every single one of them. These aren't things I learned from a careers textbook. They're things I've learned from more than 3 decades of working, making mistakes, changing direction, dealing with difficult people, and occasionally wondering what on earth I was doing with my life. Here are my 10 career hacks at 53. If you'd told the 5-year-old version of me sitting at the piano that one day I'd be working as an executive assistant in investment banking, I probably would have called you stupid. Actually, I probably wouldn't have even known what an investment bank was. We put enormous pressure on each other to decide what we're going to do with the rest of our lives. So much so that even today, before a kid is born, the parents are already applying to preschool and middle school. At 17 or 18, you're supposed to pick a university degree that apparently determines the next 50 years. But life doesn't work like that. I spent 20 years learning piano. I went to university to study music. I wanted to become a concert pianist. Then I changed my mind. And for a while, I probably felt like all those years studying music had somehow been wasted. They weren't. Learning music taught me discipline. It taught me patience. It taught me how to practice something over and over again when I wasn't very good at it. It taught me how to perform under pressure. And perhaps most importantly, it taught me that you can spend years heading in one direction and still be allowed to change your mind. Your career isn't a railway track. It's more like Google Maps. You miss the turn, it recalculates. Sometimes the alternative route ends up being better anyway. So, if you're 25, 35, 45, or even 55, and you're thinking, this isn't what I want to do anymore, change direction. It's as simple as that. And before that small voice starts whispering in your ear that it's too late, or you're not good enough, just make the decision to change, and you'll work the rest out if it's really something you want to do. The phrase, necessity is the mother of invention, rings true for those wanting to change something in their lives. So just make the decision to change today. You're allowed. Now, this one might surprise a few people. Read the Bible. And before anyone starts furiously typing in the comments, I'm not telling you that you have to believe in God. That's entirely up to you. But regardless of your religious beliefs, the Bible contains thousands of years' worth of stories about human behavior. Jealousy, power, money, leadership, betrayal, greed, kindness, forgiveness, justice, ego, and some incredibly bad workplace relationships, if we're being honest. There is an enormous amount of wisdom contained in those stories. Look at Solomon. Stories about his wisdom have survived for thousands of years because they're fundamentally about judgment, fairness, and understanding human nature. And that's something that becomes incredibly useful in business, because businesses aren't really about spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, and org charts. They're about people. People with egos, people with insecurities, people with ambitions, people having bad days, learning empathy, fairness, charity, and how to deal with difficult personalities will take you further in your career than many technical skills ever will. And don't just read the Bible. Read philosophy. Read biographies. Read things you disagree with. You don't have to believe something to learn something from it. This is probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned. Never leave an employer with a bad taste in their mouth if you can possibly avoid it. Even if you hated working there, even if you didn't like your boss, even if you think the place was completely dysfunctional, leave professionally, say thank you, do your handover properly, and walk out with your reputation intact, because industries are much smaller than you think. Investment banking in particular can be an incredibly small world. Someone knows someone, who worked with someone, who remembers you. I've seen people behave terribly when leaving an organisation because they think, I'm leaving. What do I care? You should care, because your reputation usually arrives at your next job before you do. I mean, have you ever been excited to meet a new colleague and immediately done a Google search on them and stalked their LinkedIn? Well, you can 1000% be sure your new workmates know the online you before the real you arrives on day one. People talk, recruiters talk, executives talk, colleagues move companies, assistants move companies. That person you're arguing with today might end up being the person sitting next to the hiring manager 5 years from now. So don't burn bridges unnecessarily. You never know when you may need to walk back across one. There's an expression I heard many years ago: slow to hire, quick to fire. I've changed that slightly over the years. I now think of it as slow to hire, quick to act. Take your time choosing the right people. Look beyond someone's CV. Look at how they communicate, how they behave under pressure, how they treat people who can't do anything for them, because those things often tell you far more than qualifications do. But equally, when red flags start appearing, don't continually pretend you can't see them. One red flag might be a mistake. 2 might be coincidence. When the same behaviour keeps appearing, you've probably got a pattern. And I think this applies outside work as well. Friendships, business partnerships, personal relationships. Take your time letting people into your life. But if a relationship consistently affects your mental peace, your well-being, your confidence, or your happiness, don't keep investing in it just because you've already invested years. That's basically emotional sunk cost fallacy. Time already spent is not a reason to waste more time. One of the enormous privileges of being an executive assistant is proximity. You get to work incredibly closely with people operating at the highest levels of a business. I've supported managing directors, partners, founders, and heads of businesses. And from every one of those relationships, I've tried to take something with me. How do they negotiate? How do they handle difficult conversations? How do they prioritize? How do they react when things go wrong? How do they make decisions when they don't have all the information? Sometimes I've learned what to do, and occasionally I've learned exactly what not to do. Both are valuable, And whenever I've left an employer, I've tried to do something else. I've asked my boss for candid feedback. Not, was I good? But what could I have done better? Where do you think my weaknesses are? What should I work on in my next role? That's not always comfortable. But I'd rather hear something uncomfortable that helps me grow than something flattering that teaches me absolutely nothing. And it shows respect. You're effectively saying, I valued working with you enough that I want to take something from this experience. And there's another practical reason to maintain that relationship. One day you might need that person as a reference, because sometimes the shiny new job you left for turns out not to be quite as shiny as you thought. Which brings us straight back to don't burn bridges. Also, don't forget your own personal development outside of work. Learn something new in your personal life. Every year, I try to do something new and different. This year, it was learn Chinese, which having done it, I can honestly say, it's not for me. I can speak a few words and make small talk, but I won't be delivering any life-changing speeches in Mandarin anytime soon. The main point is, I now know because I tried. Never stop increasing your knowledge. This is especially important for executive assistants. Don't just learn how to do your job. Learn how the business works. I think this has become particularly life-changing for me, in that I've worked my entire career in a female-dominated role, having only ever met one other male executive assistant in my life. And so, I've had to do more and be more than your normal EA. So, learning everything you can about your role and the business is extremely important. Ask yourself, how does this company actually make money? Who are the important clients? Who are the decision makers? What are the biggest risks? What's important to my executive? What are they trying to achieve this year? What keeps them awake at night? The more you understand the business, the more valuable you become, because eventually you stop being someone who simply receives instructions. You start anticipating them. One mantra I've always strived to work on is, if my boss has to ask me to do something, it's already too late. There's a massive difference between an assistant who says, "What do you want me to do?" and an assistant who says, "I've already taken care of it." That second person becomes incredibly difficult to replace. And this doesn't just apply to executive assistants. Whatever your job is, understand what is happening one level above you. Then understand what's happening another level above that. As you continue to learn and hunger for more knowledge, you'll begin to start seeing the whole chessboard instead of just the square you're standing on. This is one of my personal favorites. Clean desk, clean email inbox, clean mind. Clutter stresses me out. And I'm not just talking about physical clutter. Email clutter, task clutter, mental clutter. I see people receive an email that will take 30 seconds to answer and think, I'll deal with that later. Why? You've already read it. Answer it. Done. One less thing sitting in your head. I've seen executive assistants tackle the enormous jobs first because they've been told to always prioritize the biggest task. And sometimes that's absolutely necessary. But while they're spending 3 hours working on one enormous project, 25 tiny tasks are quietly piling up behind them. Then suddenly you've got 26 problems. My rule is, if something can genuinely be dealt with quickly, deal with it. I'm constantly looking for those little pockets of dead time. If I'm sitting listening to hold music, I'll answer an email. If I'm waiting for someone to join a meeting, I'll clear 2 things from my inbox. If I've got 5 minutes before I need to leave, I'll do a 5-minute job. 5 minutes doesn't sound like much, but 5 minutes, 6 times throughout the day, is half an hour. Do that 5 days a week, and you've just found another 2.5 hours. Never wait for the mythical moment when you're suddenly going to have time. If you're continuing to let the small things build in the background, that time never comes. This may be the single biggest difference between a good executive assistant and a great one. Anticipation. Don't wait for the problem. Try to see it coming. Your executive is flying tomorrow. Is the flight confirmed? Where's the car? Where's the hotel? Do they need a visa? Who's meeting them? What time do they actually need to leave the office? Have they got enough time between meetings in the airport? What happens if the first meeting runs late? You're constantly thinking, what happens next? That skill becomes incredibly powerful outside the EA world too. Successful people don't just solve today's problem, they're thinking about the problem 3 moves ahead. You won't always get it right. I certainly don't. But as you continue to practice efficiency, action instead of reaction will come naturally. Instead of asking, what do I do now? You'll be able to anticipate and ask yourself, what is likely to happen next? That one question can change the way you work. I've spent years around very senior people, and one thing I've noticed is that you can learn an enormous amount about someone's character by watching how they treat people who can't advance their career. Receptionists, assistants, waiters, drivers, cleaners, junior employees, security staff. I started my working life waiting tables at Denny's, so perhaps that's why I've always noticed it. The waiter you're speaking to today may be running the restaurant in 10 years. The junior analyst may become a managing director. The assistant sitting outside the CEO's office may know more about what's happening inside that company than half the management team. Titles change. Careers change. Power changes. If there's one important lesson to learn, it's that you never know what others have going on in their own lives, and sometimes that one interaction with you can mean an entire day of nothing special, or a few minutes of something wonderful. When I left my job at a Big Four in New Zealand, I remember telling the cleaner I was leaving, and then seeing her cry when she heard. I asked her why she was crying, and she told me I was the only one that said hello to her or good morning. I was so angry that in the 5 years I'd been there, no one else had bothered to acknowledge this human. I told my boss before I left, treat people properly because it's the right thing to do. But if you need the selfish career reason as well, people remember how you made them feel. At 53, this is probably the one I value most. Qualifications don't matter as much as experience. Your CV matters, but the relationships you build along the way matter more. In the last 15 years, I haven't approached anyone for a job. I've either been headhunted or found roles through connections whenever I've wanted to move on. Reputation matters most. Eventually your reputation becomes your most valuable asset. Are you reliable? Can people trust you? Do you gossip? Can you keep confidential information confidential? Do you panic when something goes wrong? Do you take responsibility when you've made a mistake? Do you do what you said you were going to do? Particularly as an executive assistant, you're exposed to information that other people simply don't see. Business decisions, personal information, salaries, problems, restructures, conversations behind closed doors. Discretion isn't an optional extra. It's the job. I've always believed that if someone trusts me with something confidential, it stays confidential. Because trust takes years to build and about 30 seconds to destroy. And once you've developed a reputation for being trustworthy, dependable, and calm, people remember it. Jobs come and go. Companies come and go. Bosses come and go. Your reputation follows you through all of them. Protect it. So, those are the 10 career hacks I've collected over more than 3 decades of working. And when I look back at my career, it's certainly not the career I imagined when I was sitting at a piano at 5 years old. I thought I might become a concert pianist. Then I studied music. Then I didn't want to study music. Then came marketing and public relations. Then waiting tables at Denny's. Then secretarial work. Then Saatchi and Saatchi. and eventually a career as a male executive assistant, working alongside some incredibly successful people. It's been messy, it's changed direction, there have been jobs I've loved, and probably a few I'd rather forget. But every single one of them taught me something, and perhaps that's the biggest career hack of all. Stop worrying about whether your career looks impressive on paper. Ask yourself whether you're learning, whether you're growing, whether you're becoming better at what you do, and whether the life you're building actually makes you happy. Because your career isn't your life. It's just one very large chapter of it. And at 53, I'm still writing mine. If you've learned a career lesson the hard way, put it in the comments because I'd genuinely love to hear it. And if you're interested in more conversations about careers, health, travel, and navigating life after 50, hit subscribe, because apparently I'm old enough now to have opinions about all of it. And I've still got plenty more to say.